USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt Hindra. I'm one of the founders of USA Warrior Stories. What we're going to do in the next hour is we're going to learn a little bit about what this project does and how we reach out to veterans and how we inform the public about the veterans' problems. I'm just going to show our website real quick. What this website is, it's an online archive, and every month we pick a spotlight story that has something to do with either a current veterans a story that we recorded or a veterans organizations that's helping veterans. This month's spotlight story was a company called Project Recovery, a not-for-profit, and what they do is they recover the remains of fallen soldiers. And our producer down in Florida, Ross Rollinston, and his sister produced this story. It was all done over Skype and Zoom. So this was all done via remote interviews. But basically what we do is we record the story, get it up on our website, promote the fact that it's up on our website, share it on our social media pages and in our newsletters and things like that. And every story that we do winds up in this online archive that we've created. And as you can see, we have our latest stories that we've done here. And every month we also highlight a certain aspect of military life depending on maybe an anniversary. In August is a holiday called the Purple Heart Day, so we've organized all our Purple Heart stories and highlighted some of them so people could see those stories. When we do put these stories together, they get added on our website and they get put on a blog page. As you can see, there's some information about Jim here, who served as a Marine in Vietnam. We have his video here that you can just hit play and watch. Each video is somewhere between 8 and 12 minutes long. And we also add some photographs of the veterans' time in service and maybe after service. Jim works with the Purple Heart Foundation, so he's been honored by meeting a few presidents over the years and gave us these photographs of his work. And then people can also comment when they see these stories. So that's basically what our website and archive does. We try to organize things. And I'm going to let Nick Kraus talk for a minute here. Nick is my partner in this project, one of the co-founders, and what Nick is going to talk about a little bit is about how this all started. So Nick, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Here, okay, I'm good. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Nancy and Tony and everybody for putting this together. As you can see, I'm actually wearing my my Soldier Ride Wounded Warrior Project jersey. Just did a quick bike ride. This all started back in 2004 with an idea in a bar in New York to help wounded veterans. A couple civilians, friends of mine, including myself, decided with Chris Carney to have him ride his bicycle, not us, but him ride his bicycle across the country to raise funds and awareness for injured veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. Along the way, we had videotaped parts of it thinking it was going to be a one-time thing. Soldier Ride ended up becoming a national program and sort of leading program for one of the leading programs for the Wounded Warrior Project, which was a very small organization at the time. And along the way, 10 years goes by and we've been following the same veterans that had done the ride with us initially and seen their success and what they've overcome from the adversity of their injuries. And we decided to make a documentary called Welcome to Soldier Ride, Matt and myself. And the result of that was the film, which you can now watch on Amazon Prime for free if you're interested, or we can send you a DVD of it. But one of the things that came out of that was that there were so many great stories that we weren't able to share in the film just because of time and keeping the story on track. And also with the technology being what it is now, as opposed to even 15 years ago, what you can do now with your iPhone is more than you can do with the $20,000 camera that I was working with back then. Uh, but with that said, there's so many of these stories, and everybody's got one to tell. The power of sharing your story is so important. But a lot of folks don't know how to really go about that, and then don't have a place to put it once they have put it together. So Matt and myself came up with this idea for USA Warrior Stories, and Matt will tell you more about how that all works. That's why we're here today. But that's how we got to this point, and we appreciate everybody taking a chance on and their time to learn more about how we do this. And anybody has any questions about historical things and how we got here, I'm always around on Facebook, or I'll give you my information when this is over. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Nick. So that's a little bit about how this all started. I'm going to go through a little bit about how we record veterans and how we can help you record your own story, and you can learn a little bit more about how we collect the material that we put in our archive. It's extremely important to us for you to know, for all veterans to know, that we, everyone who works here at USA Warrior Stories, and I think everybody who's been watching this project grow over the last few years, is really interested in all kinds of aspects of veterans' lives, of your time in service, issues you have, reincorporating to civilian life, issues you have at the VA, issues you have with anything. And what we find is our stories are sort of a history of that. So we have people who are still serving who are in our archive. So they're talking about things that are going on today. And then we have people who are in our archive who are in their 90s. So they have a whole life experience that they've talked about. And they've talked about their issues with PTSD and coming back and dealing with all those things, and what it was like to raise a family and those issues and everything else. So we hope that all those stories as a collective will help people that today are looking for either inspiration to move forward, maybe they're in a tough space and they need some inspiration to move forward, or also maybe connect people who are across the country from one another and served at similar times, or served at completely different times, or maybe someone who knew their father, all kinds of things like that. So that's part of the reason why we do this, is to connect veterans, help veterans connect with one another, and help us all understand a little bit more about what veterans go through, both in their time of service and after their time of service. What I would like to do right now is I'm just going to go through a quick breakdown of what exactly we do here at USA Warrior Stories. So we're going to talk a little bit about filming techniques and how we can show you how to use your smartphone, a tablet, or a web camera, or just a regular video camera that you may have around the house, to either record your own story or record someone else's story that you think would be interesting, another veteran story, and then you could submit it to our archive. So what we normally do is, anyway, if anybody gets disconnected or you want to have some more information about us, this is our email, info@usawarriorstories.org. It's basically just me and Nick, who just spoke, who answered the email. So you know us now. We'll get back in touch with you. And this is our website, usawarriorstories.org. We have 100 plus stories of veterans up there that we've accumulated in the last 2 years. And our goal is always to put a new story up every week. It's been a little hard during the pandemic, but we've managed to start recording people remotely over Zoom, through meetings like this, and connect with people. And those stories have really become part of what we do. Pre-COVID, one of the things we really like to do is get together in groups, different organizations, maybe a VFW hall, American Legion Hall, something like that, and record a group of veterans in a day. We basically set up a camera and talk with them, or go to their home and talk with them about their time in service. This is Fraser Doherty, who was a pilot during World War II. He flew over 60 missions in the South Pacific. Pretty amazing story, and his post-military story is also pretty amazing. He worked as a test pilot for many years. This is also down in Florida. This is the Navy SEALs Museum. So we go to museums, record stories of people who are either working at those museums or veterans who have served. And again, we're going into people's homes to record stories. And this is basically what we were doing up until the pandemic happened. So once the pandemic hit, we changed our mission to record stories remotely. Nick and I always imagined that we wouldn't be going out recording stories by ourselves, but at some point we would just have veterans reach out to us and send us stories that they've already recorded. And that's one of the reasons why when you look at our logo, I'll just show it real quick. I got a t-shirt. When you look at our logo, it looks like a phone because the idea is that you can record your own story with your own phone and send it to us. And we're going to tell you, we're going to give you some helpful hints now about how you can do that. One of the things that I believe makes us a little different than a lot of organizations out there that are recording stories of veterans is that we do small documentaries of these stories. So we're not only going to record your story, but we're going to edit it and we're going to add your personal photos. So we will be asking you to supply personal photos of yourself. Even if you record your story yourself in your own home, when you send it to us, we're going to ask you to send us some personal photos of your time in service. And they can be anything. They can be personal photographs. This is Joan Fury, who was a nurse during Vietnam. This is two brothers, the Quintus brothers. They're both generals, one in the Air Force and one in the Army. I don't know how often that happens, but we were happy to record them. These are just images that soldiers gave us of them working, of their jobs. Maybe a ship they served on. We also record all aspects of the military. We have quite a few great Coast Guard stories in our archive, and then we're also going to ask you to supply some photographs of your personal life. Your time after the military. This is Dave Rogers. Dave is very connected with the veterans community here on Long Island. He's a commander of a VFW post here on Long Island. He's also an artist. And in his interview, he talked about how his artwork helps him with his PTSD. So we included that in our interview with him. He talked about his time in service, and then he talked about his artwork. This is Donna Zephyrin. Donna writes poetry, and her poetry is directly related to her PTSD and issues she had in the military and getting out of the military. So we also added that into her story. Some of our veterans, they run, they compete with other veterans and they work out, and that's part of how they deal with getting back into civilian life. I see Jolene here. This is Jolene has contacted me the other day, and she joined us. She has an uncle, I believe, who was a Tuskegee Airman, and we recorded his story. This is an image we found in the National Archives of the Tuskegee Airmen, and that was put in as part of Mr. Hayes' story. These are images that we collect from the press corps. This is someone who actually was embedded in Iraq and took these photographs, and we'll add those to your story depending on where you served. These are stock footage of images that we find online, and we also license, and we'll add all those things to make your story come to life. The other thing we've been very lucky about doing, and something I run a video production company, and one of the things we do quite a lot is we license footage, and so we can find video maybe of your time in service. Last year we did a story, and let me pull that up on our website here. And what was amazing about this story, I think everybody can see our website now, hopefully. So Bill Hutton, who was this year we honored him, this month we honored him again. He was Purple Heart recipient. we found through the National Archives a piece of video of his commander talking about the battle that he was injured in. And I just couldn't believe that this even existed. And it was basically just amazing to me that we could find something like this. I'm just going to play it.
Larry was carried on by Major General Wood B. Kyle. General English describes the early action.
Back in May, it became evident that the North Vietnamese were building up in this area to the south of the DMZ. We believe that there are as many as 3 regiments in this area, and as a result, we have engaged in an operation along with the 1st ARVN Division in this area, with the ARVN Airborne in this area, and with the Marine Task Force Delta in this area.
So this was William Hutton's commander, and we managed to find this description of the battle that he was injured in the National Archives, and we added it to his story. Bill couldn't believe that this even existed. He was just amazed that we were able to find it. And it's one of the things that we really try to do and go the extra length to produce these stories for veterans. These stories are something that we feel really passionate about, and just being able to research this and find things like this for veterans and make their story really come to life gives us a great amount of pleasure. And it's one of the things that our not-for-profit is able to do because of our connection. All of us who are involved in this not-for-profit are either very passionate about doing video work or work in the video business professionally. So we all have these sort of connections to those things. So those are things that I'm very proud that we've been able to find and do things like that and bring people's connections of their time and service together and show those things. So those are some of the things we do. If any of you are uncomfortable having us come to your home in person, or maybe you're too far away from us, we have 2 main branches that we produce out of. One is in Vero Beach, Florida, and one is in Long Island, New York. So if you're a veteran and you live close to those 2 regions, we would love to try and meet you and record you in person. But if not, we could definitely do a Skype, a Zoom interview. And the quality we've been really happy with how these are coming out, and we would really like to be able to continue that process with you. Before we get to this next stage, I want to introduce Jay Lawrence. Jay's one of our producers that works with us. We met Jay through our work with the Purple Heart Foundation, and Jay approached us and said he would love to. He was doing a show recording veterans interviews for a public access station on Staten Island. And we basically asked him, well, how can we help? And so we've been trying to help him with his project since we met him. It is wonderful for us. There's a lot of us who work on this project. The majority of us are not veterans. It's wonderful for us to have someone like Jay on board who spent so many years in the Army, and to have that perspective is just fantastic. So Jay, why don't you talk? I'm just gonna share your video. We'll show it real quick, and then maybe we'll get your video because I'm not seeing your camera on. But let's show this video first.
All right, here I am in New York City at the Veterans Day Parade with Tori. Tori, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
It means all of the freedoms and all of the things that we enjoy about being Americans.
Yeah. So who are you guys representing here today?
Charles Sladek. This is my dad, Corrine Morvet. This is his coat. We're very proud of him, and we appreciate our vets.
Nice. He's here in spirit, definitely.
Amen.
Yeah. So what does does Veterans Day mean to you?
It means everything. It means family. It means serving this country. Greatest feeling in the world. I do it all over again.
Oh, yeah. Everybody, I'm here with Jillian in New York City at the Veterans Day Parade. Hi. So what does Veterans Day mean to you? And drumming and singing and all the veterans.
And what do you say? Say my daddy is a Marine.
Your daddy's a Marine? Say bye-bye. Look at them.
Harry Oscar Collins. It's my duty, my honor, my privilege to be here today and walk amongst my brother's servicemen.
My name is Kelsey. I'm with AT&T Veterans, and what Veterans Day means to me is an opportunity for me to show my support to all the men and women who have served this country and given me everything, the freedom that I have, and the opportunity to do something that's great.
Ron Brown.
Yeah, we've been here
Fresh Week Carp Battalion. What Veterans Day means to me is that the fact that getting amongst my brothers, regardless of the fact of what branch of service, and knowing that the fact that we held it down for this country for the sake of democracy.
Hi, my name is Joe DiGiovanni. I served in the Army Engineers in Vietnam, 1967 and 1970. Veterans Day means it's a day for recognition of all the veterans that some gave all and some gave something.
Hey, my name is Corey White. Served with 2-8 Marine Corps, 2nd Division. And Veterans Day means a lot to me. It means respect. People signed a blank check for their life. So it means a lot to me to be here.
My father served in the USS St. Paul in the Vietnam War, 1966. And what Veterans Day means to me is remembrance of our loved ones, of men and women who served overseas and paid the ultimate price, and the ones that came home.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Man, thank you so much. What's up, baby?
So that is, let's see, we get Jay up here. That is a video that Jay produced last year for Veterans Day. And I think we got Jay on now. So Jay, why don't you talk a little bit about, yep.
All right.
Jay, why don't you talk a little bit about why you do what you do?
All right. So the big thing is just to, get the years correct. I'm actually 21-year retired Army veteran, served 12 years in the infantry with 2 tours in Iraq and 9 years in recruiting. And one thing that I noticed when I was running around, talking to people about joining the military was nobody was familiar on how the military operated. Families, mothers, fathers, grandparents, nobody knew what their kid was getting themselves into. They always told me, I'm not going to let my son join the Army, go to war and die. They didn't realize there's a lot more MOSs, a lot more jobs that are just support, where their kids wouldn't be in harm's way. My son was an Apache helicopter repair mechanic, and my daughter did human resources. So I would tell them my experience as a parent, and it would allow them to be more at ease and be familiar with the military. So when I retired, I had a huge void in my heart saying, well, what am I going to do now? I have nothing. So I found a way to give back. I went on to a show called In Honor Of with a friend of mine, Paul Dietrich. And he, after our interview, the producer came up and said, hey, if you can find people to interview, I'll give you your own show. And I felt that this was my way to give back to the veteran community. So what I did is I developed Combat Zone 360, where I was able to bring on veterans that are serving, that have served, veteran nonprofit organizations, and it was more based just to allow veterans to tell their stories and to inform veterans and educate veterans about nonprofit organizations that are out there for their use. And that's the big, that's the history behind Combat Zone 360. And then I turned it into a nonprofit organization so I can try to take it further.
That's great, Jay. And we met Jay, and he we just sort of felt like he was somebody that was interested in doing production work, and maybe didn't have, he had this amazing background, 21 years in the military, which we don't have, and we have this background of producing and being able to do documentaries, and it just felt right to team up with them. I don't know how many stories we've done together now, Jay, but it's got to be about a dozen, right? So, and Jay helps us find veterans in the New York area who are interested in telling their stories, and then we set up a day in which we could do 5 or 6 stories in a day and do that. And hopefully we're going to start doing that again soon. So if there's anybody in the New York area who's interested in joining us on one of these in-person recording sessions, please let us know, and we can get your information and have you be part of that, those days that we do those things. They're basically been on Staten Island recently, but we're flexible to where we could do them. If you have a VFW hall or an American Legion hall that you think would be appropriate, please let us know, and we could reach out to them and see if they'll let us record in their environment. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you so much for everything you do for us, and just for being here today, because I always feel like by you being here, it just allows us to show that veteran's point of view of someone who's not afraid to share their story and get it out there and help educate people who are non-veterans. So thanks, Jay.
It's all about one team, one fight.
So I'm going to introduce Ross Rollinson in a moment. Ross is one of our producers, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that Ross has been working on. So Ross Rollinson this is Ross, and he's going to talk in a minute. He's been a video producer for many years, and teamed up with us pretty much right from the beginning when Nick and I were putting this project together, and Ross keeps coming up with these ideas for us, which I think is just fantastic. And one of the things he wanted to do was he wanted to be able to honor soldiers who are no longer with us. So we have this sort of memorial project that's going on now. So if any of you have relatives in your family who served and maybe died in combat, maybe died years after their time in the service, but are no longer with us, to be able to tell their story, please let us know, and we can help you pull that story together. So Ross has been doing things like that for us. Ross has also been doing a lot of our remote videos on Skype and Zoom and FaceTime. So he's somebody, if you're interested in telling your story over Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime, we can make arrangements for Ross to either interview you, or if you feel more comfortable, Jay to interview you, if you're more comfortable with the veteran interviewing you, or anyone else of us that could help out. But right now I'd like Ross to talk a little bit about a recent project he did, which is not the person the focus of the project. He was not a veteran, but he's somebody who's helping veterans. And this is also something that we do. We try to team up with different groups and organizations and different people who are out there working with veterans, or this is really a story of someone bringing to life the images of veterans who are maybe no longer with us, and we found this really an important thing to talk about. So Ross, why don't you take it over from here? Why don't you introduce yourself and take it over?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt and Nick, for having me and for what you guys are doing. It's important to understand. Can you hear me? We're good to go?
Yep.
Okay. It's important to understand that when Matt brings up some of us aren't military backgrounds, but we have a lot of love and faith and respect for the veterans of our country, past, present, and future. And so with that, we'd love to think we could get everybody's story somehow, some way. The best situation would be we just have hundreds of people bringing in their stories so we can share them. And that's the main force and the main thrust, right? We want to be able to share stories of veterans who have served, sacrificed, and served the country. So offshooting of that, I've come up with a couple of ideas that can help bring something else to the table for the project that we're working on. And it's got to do with other organizations and people who are telling their stories about other people. Any way it can be brought to the table to reinforce the fact that what the military does. And thank you to all of our veterans that are watching out there today for your service. So one of the projects I came up with was when I was on looking around the internet, I found a project that a young graphic artist named Jacob Lagerwey does colorizations of old black and white photos, mostly from World War II and World War I, and he converts them to color. And it's so impressive to bring back to life black and white shots into color. It makes it look like it's happening, it's something that's happening today. And the memory of all the veterans from the past that have imagery, to see them converted from black and white to color is just amazing. And it blew me away. And as a matter of fact, after connecting with Jacob, and he's in the Netherlands, but he's got a big Instagram following and is also another website which is colorized World War II photos that he sends his images to. It's got a huge following. I mean, like 600K. It's crazy, but I mean, it's important, and people see how important it is to understand what veterans have done and bring back the history. And some of the other projects I'm working on have got to do with veterans' history and people who help bring back the history. I think it's important to remember where we've come from as much as where we're at, and how important it is to focus on everybody who's served the country in whatever decade or century, doesn't matter. I think this whole country is about the veterans, really, helping us in our freedom. So I have a lot of respect for that and looking for these projects. And Matt, you may want to show some of these images if you can, what Jacob has done with, especially the US veterans. So he works with all European veterans too, but I was impressed with what he's done for our service veterans with converting these black and white images from World War II, World War I, and Korea to nowadays colorizing these images. And it looks like you're looking at these people today. It's an amazing story, an amazing art that he does.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let's just show a little bit of what Jacob does here. We're just going to show. I'm going to jump to sort of the middle of the video, Ross. Again, this can be seen on our website, and let me just pull this full screen, and then we can listen to Jacob a little bit talking about what he does.
I was trying to make it look as recent as possible. I saw someone commenting on a photo on the World War II colorized photos page, and he was just asking or saying like, I wish, well, I have a few photos, I wish I could have get them colorized. So I sent him a message and he responded, and he sent me some photos. The B-29 Yuk girl that crashed on Tinian Island, and the whole crew was killed, and his cousin was killed also. So he never knew him. And he only had black and white photos. These were, well, one of the first I did. To me, that it shows that this is early work. I changed the way how I work. I usually spend like 30% on finding a good photo and a caption, and the other 30% is research, and then it's 40% coloring. So it's a lot of time that is involved with researching. And this is Mr. Patek. This is the original black and white, and then once colorized, this was the result. Well, yeah, of course. When it's the first time that a lost relative actually, well, more or less comes to life again.
That's basically what Ross did with Jacob's story. Again, you can watch the whole story on our website. But we find that these stories are really important. I mean, just the fact that we can bring somebody's who. Just the fact that we can bring somebody's relative, or Ross had been able to reach out to Jacob, and Jacob does this work and brings people's relatives who are no longer with us and allows them to see those people for the first time in color. Really, I think when Ross came to me to this and said that, you know, I know this guy's not in the military, but this is what he's doing, and these military families are sending him photos and ideas to do things. We just thought, you know, this is just a great thing for us to be able to cover. So I don't want you to think you know, if you're a veteran out there and your focus is maybe something a little out of the ordinary, please, we want to be able to record your story. Or if you're not a veteran and you're helping veterans, or you're doing something good for the veterans community, we really want to be able to do that. And the other thing, Ross, I want you to just talk briefly about your grandfather, because the two stories are sort of connected. How Jacob got into our midst and how you started doing this memorial project. So why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's important to allow people to tell their stories, and it's also important to allow families to tell their stories, especially about family maybe they've lost and or never met. In my case, I never met my grandfather. One of the reasons I've gotten so into and involved in showcasing military and veteran stories is because my pride for my grandfather's story, what I knew about him through just photos and you know, communications with my grandmother and my aunt. So I thought it was important to share that and to know more and to do something for him. And it just kind of worked out. I'd never seen him, met him, and the black and white picture that I had from his service time, had Jacob colorize that shot. And it blew me away to see my grandfather for the first time in color. I mean, that's kind of just, it fit together. Those two projects reminded me that how important it is that we share not only just the veteran and the veteran story, but things that surround our military and the veteran story in a whole, to help support, for people to know and to be more involved with veterans and families of veterans, and to care about it. And so my grandfather served in World War II. He was in the Navy. He was a Seabee. He helped build the runways for the B-29s that eventually finished off the war out in the Pacific. So he was in Tinian and Okinawa, and working in basically construction, and the Seabees are all about building and fighting. And so I built out that story from having enough photographs and telling his story. And it coincided with working with Jacob and colorizing a couple of his images, which made it so much more real for me to see that and then be involved in telling his story.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. And it's so, you know, it's important to us to be able to tell and archive these stories. Ross's grandfather's name is Harry Rowlandson, and again, you can find him on our website. And we've built out a page around Ross's grandfather, and I think Ross did just an amazing job. And that's not the only memorial piece that Ross has done. And we do on our website, we have a section that's called In Memory Of, and Ross, I hope I get Richard's last name right, but Vortepek?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Richard Vortepek was somebody, and his son recorded it. Ross did an interview with his son, and that interview is also on, I'll just show it to you real quick. It's on our website. The fascinating thing about this one is that Mr. Vortepek's son had audio recordings of his father talking about his life, and Ross took those audio recordings and edited it into the story, so you actually hear his voice talking about, even though he's no longer with us, you hear his voice talking about his time in service. And then Ross added in these photographs that the family supplied to build out that memorial story. So if anybody's there and they have, if anybody's out there, watching or listening to this workshop and they have images of a family member or maybe some history written about that family member, we could either have you do a voiceover about that or record you about that, or add in some of the voice of the actual family member who is no longer with us. So those are all things that Ross has been doing for us. And I really thank him for that work that he does. And Ross is our producer down in Vero Beach. So if anybody's down in that area and would like to have their story recorded, we could put you in touch with Ross and his sister Donna. And they're a team, and they work shooting and editing these stories and researching, and they do an amazing job. And I want to thank you, Ross, for everything you do for us. And just all the great ideas that you bring to us. So thanks, Ross.
Listen, I don't think there's any lack of material to work with. I mean, we really want to get more stories from veterans, as many as possible. We hope that opens up and just turns into a huge thing, that we can see so many more stories directly from the veterans. That's the key here. Hopefully that's where we're going. And I know you guys are working hard on that. So around that story, that support stories for organizations and backstories from families, I think that's just as important, and maybe it brings the community together with fleshing out the whole story.
Great, thanks, Ross. And again, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort of go finish through my my PowerPoint presentation, so everyone can get a basic overview of the things that we do, and then I'd like to open it up to any questions anybody has. So where were we? So we talked to Ross. Great. So one of the things that, especially now during the pandemic, we're working on is to get more and more people involved in shooting their own stories. This, basically, and let me pull out. Let me show this for a second. So basically what we're doing is we were setting up little kits that we could send people. It's basically a little tripod that we have where you can mount your smartphone on that tripod to help record your story or maybe someone else's story that you're interested in recording. Your phone would just basically mount on that, and there are a couple of different kind of microphones that you could use to help the sound get a little better. This is basically a little what's called a shotgun microphone, and that really just clips right on the phone itself, plugs in, and it just, if you can imagine, you're just going to get a better volume, better audio level when you do a recording. Or we could provide you with a what's called a lavalier microphone to help with your interview, and you could sort of clip it. That clips on like this, the lavalier microphone. And so if you're out there and you're interested in recording a veteran story, maybe somebody in your family, and you have access to a smartphone, we can send you a tripod mount, and a microphone to make that look and sound much better, and just help you walk you through that interview with that family member. If you're a veteran and you want to try to record your own story, maybe you have a family member that lives with you, a son, a daughter, a husband, a grandparent, whatever, that's good with using a phone, and you'd like them to record your story if you're a veteran, we can also supply you with some stuff to help you do that. And all we ask is that you do use it. You send us the footage with those things we talked about earlier, maybe some photographs of your time in service. And then when you're done with it, you either send the equipment back to us, or you pass it on to another veteran who would like to use it and share their story. So that's all we really ask, for you to do that. It helps us keep our archive going. It helps things share. We are in development, and this is something that's moving quickly, and we're hoping we're going to get it done. We've been talking about it for a while. We've been in development, working with a company and developing an app for a smartphone. And then the thing with that app, it'll help people record their stories. It'll have sort of a walkthrough scenario, so you can record it and easily upload it to us, so that we can we can edit it for you and get the story out there, and also prompt you to upload your own photographs and things like that. And then the app will also be searchable, so you can see the stories that are in our archive. Because our main purpose is not only to record these stories, but to share them and get them out to people. So that's basically what we're trying to do now. We'll also show you some pretty simple proper filming techniques. We have a pamphlet we could send you out, or you could just look at this workshop again. But the pamphlet basically shows you the do's and don'ts of what to do when you're filming with your smartphone. Things like try to record in landscape mode as opposed to portrait mode. Little things like using a tripod that, again, we can provide for you. Avoiding using things like the digital zoom on the camera. So you want to really move the camera close to your subject so that you get better quality from your recording. And also make sure that you frame and select a nice backdrop for your subject when you're recording. There are things like in the video world that we always like to avoid, and one of them is called backlight. So if you're shooting in front of a window, it tends to darken the camera and make your subject look very dark. So we try to avoid things like that. And I just mentioned the idea that we can provide a microphone for you. We'll ship it out to you, and that'll help you record your stories. Or if you already have something like an earbud or a wireless earbud, you can always use those as a microphone, because they have microphones built into them. It just helps the sound of the recording much better. These are also little hints. Again, we have a pamphlet, so when if you were to request a tripod or want to do something like this, just contact us, and when we send this out to you, we'll make sure you have the pamphlet, which also has some starter questions to get you started, but it also gives you little helpful hints about your focus, so that I don't know if any of you've ever recorded something and it goes out of focus for a second, but you want to try and lock the focus and what's called the exposure on the camera, so you get the best possible quality. We also recommend that you put your phone in airplane mode before you're recording, so it doesn't ring when in the middle of an interview. And this is also the idea behind our app that we're developing. There's companies out there that have apps that help you film and help you record things, but they all charge for it. And what we want to do is create an app that's free for the user, that will allow you to do a little focusing and adjust some things and frame your subject out right. Hopefully that'll be available sometime by the end of the year to help out everyone who wants to record with people. Again, I talked a little bit about the lavalier microphone. That's this little microphone that clips on you. It just helps to record. It also helps if you have a nice quiet place to record in, and a place that's well lit without being backlit. All those things do really help the recording. I'm going to go one more back. I want to thank Nick Kraus for being my guinea pig and the model in all these shots. We like to make fun of Nick. He looks great on camera.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Yep. So those are things. Again, if you're interested in talking to us further, please email us if you're interested in either scheduling a remote interview where one of us could ask you questions and do the record the interview, whether it's myself, Nick, Jay, or Ross. We'd be happy to help you record your interview remotely. And then you could just reach us through this or through our website. And again, I think I mentioned this before, but I think one of the things that makes our project different than other projects that are recording veterans is that we really we really make an effort to share these stories on social media. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to our members, and that's one way we share it. But if you can imagine, there's a lot of social media that's going on out there, and a lot of it's negative, and a lot of it's just who knows what it is. What we try to do is whenever we do a new story, we will take like a 1 minute of that story that we do, and we put it out on social media. And these are some of the things that we did recently. A lot of the stories are just quick clippets of people's lives, and hopefully they intrigue people to watch a little more.
They didn't give us exam for the Tuskegee Airmen. They just gave regular flying exams that for all the flyers. I think it's about 80 of us that took the exam. 80. They were all white, and we completed it quicker than the rest of them. And we went out in the hall to wait for the results. And I remember when they called us in, the first thing the instructor asked who was Hayes and Quinn. They had our names recorded, but they didn't know which is which. So we said we were the two black ones. So the only thing he said to us, he said, "You two scored the highest score that ever scored down here at the field." And I scored 94, and Quinn scored 97. So we were in.
So again, this was, unfortunately, Mr. Hayes has passed away since we recorded his story. But these are things that we put out there, and we highlight different veteran stories. This was one of our first.
These are letters that I wrote to him.
This is Joseph Giannini, and he would talk about all the letters that he read years after. These are all the letters that his wife and his parents, he sent to them from Vietnam, and he came home and read them years later. I'm just going to let him say it in his own words for a minute.
These are letters that I wrote to my wife. These are all letters while I was in the Marine Corps. What happened is in 2002, all these letters were returned to me by my ex-wife, 2002. And at the same time, by coincidence, my mom returned all the letters that I wrote. But these letters start in Nam. The letters I wrote to my mom started in boot camp in Parris Island. So all of a sudden, in the summer of 2002, I had these letters. I had no idea they saved them. So I started reading them, and something happened.
So again, whenever we do a new story with a veteran, we do this little highlight reel, and we promote it on social media to get people interested in watching the stories. And this is, again, I feel is something that makes our project a little more unique than other projects. We're not just an archival project. We really do make the effort to make the stories in our archive available to people. And we want people to watch the stories. We want to share stories of veterans. It's very important to us. Even some of the older, we've designed the website so that the older stories that are in our archive, for instance, if you click on one of our latest stories, which is about a Vietnam veteran, on the sidebar over here, where it cues you to watch more stories that are sort of related to this, they're arranged by the older stories that we recorded. So you're always going to get those stories that are sort of deep in the archive, all of a sudden will pop up again. So we want to make sure that even the first stories that we recorded are seen by people, and they keep getting seen by people. And we try to honor people on anniversaries of things that maybe they've had, or anniversary of a birthday, an anniversary of their retirement, whatever it is, whatever they send us, we try to honor them again and keep those stories out there and keep them fresh, because we realize that every day there's somebody out there who hasn't seen any of our stories. So we want to make sure that they're not just seeing the latest story, but they're seeing all the stories that are in our archive. We've been very happy with our affiliation with Amazon Prime Video, and we currently have our first season of USA Warrior Stories on Amazon Prime, and we have there's 10 stories, including the first story that we ever did with Martin Sylvester, Joe Giannini, who you just saw quickly talking about his letters. But these stories are available to watch on Amazon Prime, free to all Prime members. If you're not a Prime member, each story is $1 to watch, but that money helps us do what we do. But if you are an Amazon Prime member, you can watch all those stories for free on your smart TV. And we're in the middle of producing season 2, which is going to come out on Veterans Day this year. We're very excited about that, and about everything that we sort of have been trying to do over the years. So that's another way we get these stories out there. We keep them fresh. We keep some new stories out there for people to do. I'm trying to think if we have anything else we want to really talk about. What I'd like to do now is just open it up for any questions that people may have. And, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and start talking, and we will find you.
I hope I make the cut for season 2.
Yeah, exactly. So Jay, we did a story on Jay, so he hopes he's going to make the cut for season 2. We're doing the older ones first, Jay, so you might be in season 3.
No, I'm all fine with it. Their stories are way more powerful than mine.
I think everybody, your story is pretty powerful. I think everybody's story is just as equally important out there. So do we have any questions by anybody who's a veteran, maybe interested in telling their story?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, how you doing, man? Not more so, less a story. So when I went to quarantine, I started TikTok. I'm sure you guys heard of it. Just got to 100,000 followers, and I have a lot of people that are really interested in what you're talking about as far as sharing the stories as well. Primarily, you do interviews in New York alone, so to speak? I'm in New York myself, but I know, like I said, 100,000, maybe 50,000 veterans now that are following me. They would not only love to hear what you guys are doing and see these videos, but also share the stories as well. And I would help.
Yeah, well, thank you. And what's your name? I'm sorry.
Full name is Brian Critton.
Brian, thank you so much, and thanks for your service. And so we basically we're doing, like I said, we're doing a lot of the Zoom interviews now. So if somebody anywhere in the world wants to hook up with one of our interviewers, that we'll set up a time and set up a time for the interview. And spend about an hour, maybe an hour and a half with that person. Ross and I actually have one scheduled right after this. So we do this, we try to do this all the time, as many as we can. And again, we ask that veteran to provide some images of their time in service, whatever it is. And then we'll do the research to sort of fill in the rest of the story.
Okay.
So that would be great.
I'm gonna make a video, and pretty much everybody can contact you through the email you provided us.
They definitely can. That's pretty easy. And if you want to start it by telling your own story, let us know. We'll make that arrangement.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's probably why I am where I'm at now, as far as social media aspects concerned. Through sharing my story, I'd love to. Like I said, more so. I've literally been on phone calls with vets at night now because of this app, talking them out of suicide. So for them to have some other people to relate to outside of myself, to me in itself would be a blessing.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, I've been very surprised with what we've done from the beginning is people really are so open and honest with Nick and I from day one in telling their stories about how, you know, they're you know, how they're dealing with PTSD and how they're not dealing with PTSD, and how, you know, that their friends have died and they watch that, you know, either in their time of service or after, and how that changed them completely and how that changed everything that they do. And we've been really amazed at how open and honest the veterans who have been in our archive have been to us with these stories. And I really feel like that helps people. I'll give you another, for instance. We interviewed a female veteran who was going through some issues that you know, Nick and I are not veterans and we're not women, so we didn't understand at all what she was going through. But we put her in touch with somebody who had been out of the military, who served in the military, another female veteran, and they connected. And I feel like that was great to be able to make that connection. So those are things that we hope continue to happen. I think I just mentioned recently that we got a message from a Vietnam veteran about the nursing corps, and we put that person in touch with this nurse that's in our archive who served in Vietnam. So it just continues, you know, all those conversations continue. And I think this is a great catalyst for conversation, this project. So thanks, Brian. I appreciate you being here today. Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Anyone else?
Hey,
Hi,
how's it going? Johan Arenas here.
Johan, thank you for joining us.
So, have you guys thought about doing follow-up interviews? So, the reason for my question is because our story gets us to where we are today, but we want to see where we're going tomorrow. And that sort of paints the picture, not only for people to see, but for other veterans that are getting out of the military, see what the possibilities are after the military. Just to see if you guys are doing follow-up interviews, sort of to give an update to the watchers and on how the veteran is doing and what they're up to and how their entire story led to where they are.
Johan, thank you so much for that question, and I really appreciate it. And we do that. Again, the pages we develop for these veteran stories are designed like blogs. So even though we'll do the sort of longer interview, and I'll just show you. And I mentioned Dave earlier, who works for the VFW here on Long Island. But so Dave Rogers, we did a story about him, and when COVID hit, we found out that he was doing stuff for the veterans community about COVID. So then we re-interviewed Dave, and we did this sort of 2 or 3 minute new interview with him, and we added it to his blog page. So you can see that we have his original interview here, and then we have the new interview that we did with him up here. And those are things we're doing, you know, that sort of connect what veterans are currently going through today. And anyone who reaches out to us, we try to reach out to them. We keep in touch with them. We do these things. We have another veteran who I want to do a new interview with. She's been a nurse through this whole COVID thing, and originally we interviewed her. She's a younger vet who has been out of the Army for a few years, and that would be great. Also, some of our veterans have asked us to add other interviews that they've done. You know, so maybe we're not the only organization who's interviewed you. Maybe someone else has interviewed you, or maybe you've done an interview on the radio, and we can also add those things to your page. And the best example I have of that is Chick Galea, and Chick is a World War II vet, and he we originally interviewed him last year or the year before, and then he said, "Oh, I've been interviewed before." So we found that other interview that he did,
and to tell his story. And we added that to his page in our archive, just to add, more interest in what he does and what's going on. So yes, I love that idea. And we want to be able to use this platform, and it's why these pages are designed like a blog, so that we can add stuff to it, add updates to what's going on in people's lives. And this is a two-way street. We hope that once you're part of our archive, you stay involved with us and you stay connected, and maybe even like Jay. We interviewed Jay, and all of a sudden now he's doing interviews with other veterans. So maybe that becomes how you get connected with us. So thank you for that question. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm interested in Hi, my name is Christopher Zimbardi, and I'm interested in participating, but I live in Philadelphia. So how can I'd like to share my story, and this is really interesting to me. So how can I participate?
Well, again, Christopher, I think Nancy has brought most of you here, Nancy from Wounded Warrior Project, and she will send me your direct email. I'll contact you, and we can set up a time over Zoom where we can do a Zoom interview with you, and
that would be great.
We can get started that way. That would be fantastic.
Sure, thank you.
And so, people have all kinds of reasons for interviewing us. We had a woman recently who I believe spent about 12 years in the Army, and was dealing with the Gulf War syndrome, and she started an organization out in the Midwest, and she contacted us, and we did her interview over Zoom, and then she was able to share that interview with the people that she's trying to inform about what she and her group of veterans in their area are going through. So we would love to, any story we could get. We're not interested in politics, anything like that. We want to just share veteran stories and make sure that they get out there for people. So thanks for that, Christopher. Thank you for your question. Anyone else? Well, this was great, and I'd like Nick Krause to just talk for a second about how important it is to tell your story. We've found that sometimes to just get it out there helps you. It helps the person watching. It helps Nick and I, who are get out of our own world, whatever it is. But Nick, talk a little bit about the through your work with Wounded Warrior Project over the years, how important it is for warriors to talk to each other. And now that we can't really see each other in person, this is a way we can do that.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt, for hosting this event today, and Ross and everybody else, and everybody for being on the call. So Soldier Ride is an event that takes people out of the hospital to their home, and usually it's a 4-day thing, a program of Wounded Warrior Project. And something that never got old for me, when people say, how many years in a row have you gone and done the Phoenix Soldier Ride or this Soldier Ride or that? And some of them are exactly the same thing every year. And what always kind of never made it old for me was that, every year there are 50 different wounded warriors, many whom had never been on one of these rides before. Basically, you get out of the hospital, or your home, and you take this chance to go on this bike ride. And what was always amazing to me is when you have the introduction meeting, and everybody's shy, maybe hesitant. Not everybody, but a lot of people are, and wondering if they made a good choice to take their 4 days of their time to go on this trip. And over the course of those 4 days, from riding the bikes together, seeing some things together wherever the trip takes you, whether it's a museum or a sporting event or something you hadn't seen before, and even just the time on the bus or having meals together, and then watching over 4 days these friendships build, and the camaraderie is a word that people use all the time, is something that never got old for me. So going to Phoenix every year and sweating in 120-degree heat on the side of the highway riding a bike, that would probably get old for me. But watching people and the bonding that happens, And it always made me sad that we had to leave. And it also made me sad for the folks that probably needed the help the most that weren't able, for whatever reason, to be able to come on these trips, whether it was availability, logistics, their family life, their medical situation. You know, if they lived in Schenectady or wherever it might be, that it's too far for them to get there. And that's the beauty of a project like this, especially in these times now, where because of COVID and the restrictions on everything, even leaving your own home, where a project like this can really take off and be so beneficial. I found by telling my story, and I was never in the military, but just by being able to share things with people, even if it's someone you don't really know that well, and sometimes it's the best way to be able to share stuff is with someone you don't know, because they're going to ask you questions because they know nothing about you. I found through these interviews, you see people, even folks that have been out of the service for 60 or 70 years, you know, telling stories. And there's a satisfaction in that. And there's a satisfaction for those that might be listening to those stories to know that it's something that they had gone through themselves that they might have felt that they were alone with. One thing that I've always found interesting is when you're sitting with a World War II veteran who's 100 years old, and their kids thinking they're going to hear the same story over and over again that they've heard for the last 60 years, you know, about that one time. And then all of a sudden they tell a story about something that they hadn't even thought of, that was just tripped because of a question that Matt asked them that led to another question that, you know, made them bring up something that even their own kids, after hearing the same stories for 60 years, had never heard that one before. And so it refreshes the memory, it helps heal the memories, and being involved in this project, it's heavy at times, but it's so rewarding, and I think that I don't think we've interviewed anybody yet that regretted taking the hour it took to record this, and I'm sure everyone's families, you know, down the line will appreciate having this as an archive, as well as the general public. So anyway, I hope you all are interested, and I thank you all for taking the time today.
Thanks, Nick. And one more opportunity for anybody who hasn't spoken. If anybody has something, a question, something they'd like to add, please do before we close out.
I just wanted to say thank you. I'm pretty quiet, but I just want to say thank you for doing this. I anticipate taking part, and it looks pretty exciting.
Thanks a lot, Alexander. Thank you for being here today, okay?
Sure.
We have just a little highlight reel that we're going to show that just basically it's all those little 1-minute things put together that I'm going to end with today, just so you guys can get an idea of the scope of the people we've interviewed and what we do, and a little bit more about what this project's about. So I'm going to run that if I can.
You said y'all send out like the tripod and the mic. What would you need to do to request one of those to be able to record our stories or somebody else's story?
Yeah, George, you can, if you like, you could just send me an email at info@usawarriorstories.org, and we can discuss that, and I could ship something out to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, if anybody's interested in participating, not just by telling their story, but maybe helping us record other stories, please let us know, because that's what we're here for, and we can help you get that started. So thanks for your question, George. All right, I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. And I'm just going to add, if anybody's got any, you can send me a private message while this short video is running. It's just a couple minutes long, and we'll answer your questions, okay?
USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another, and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! What the hell is happening? The attack started about 7:55, and 2,300 servicemen got killed that day. We had no more chance than a snowball had in hell.
Boy, I'll tell you, we lost
A whole generation and then some, man. Talk about the greatest generation.
In 1969, I guess, I was in the under 100 club. I was drafted and my number was 99.
The worst day of my life when I got my draft notice. All of a sudden you're a college student and then you get your fucking draft notice.
I always knew I wanted to be in the Army. My father was in the Army. All of my uncles served at one point or another. When I got there, I felt like I was a round peg in a round hole.
The mission of all SEALs is to do whatever the commander tells you to do. In the Battle of Mogadishu, I was part of Task Force Ranger. I was one of 4 SEAL snipers. And at the time, President Clinton sent us in there, and we did our best, and it turned out to be a real shit show.
It's kind of weird, like it was in the movies, you know, like where you just get the, and like it looked like a missile had went off. Well, in all actuality, it was a suicide bomber that had drove into our front gate.
The most challenging thing, I believe, was going to the gas chamber. They have to remove the gas mask, they put the tear gas in. They want each soldier to say their name, rank, and social security number.
I know one time I had just landed, and then you pull up to the front of the ship, and a plane came in there, same type that I had. He got low out there and hit it's called the round down. It's the back end of it's the blunt end of that ship, and it broke in half.
It's, you know, a very interesting job we do. We have the Combat Search and Rescue Mission. We go out and try to find anybody who's an isolated person or someone behind enemy lines. I've had quite a few stateside deployments as well. Most recently, I was in Texas for Hurricane Harvey.
When I was young, Vietnam started. While I was growing up, Vietnam was still going on. And when I was 18, Vietnam was still going on. So I decided instead of going to college that I would just try my hand in the Army.
People think about war casualties as soldiers. There's also a lot more people who are casualties. So this kid picks up an unexploded bomb and it goes off. By the time we got him, we had a 10-year-old kid with 99% third-degree burns.
I came over here to this country when I was 10 years old. I came from Central America, Nicaragua. There was a civil war going on. My aunt got killed, like in front of my grandmother, I guess. I believe the United States is the greatest country in the world, and when 9/11 happened, being in Staten Island and just, you know, watching, remembering that day, and like I wanted to go join like right away.
It's one of my favorite pieces, actually. So in the front here, you see all these firefighters and police officers that were part of the scene of what was going on. You'll see I use red in a lot of my paintings. Red is my way to express my anger. So I use, you know, my red to get my anger out of me and put it into my artwork.
There are a lot of struggles being a female in the military. There's 3 types of men in the Army. There's the kind that think, and we can all work together and be a team. There's the kind that thinks that you're there for one thing and one thing only. And then there's the kind that don't think you belong there at all because you're a woman.
I'm sure anyone that's been to Walter Reed can attest that it's a really powerful place. So I got there, I was 24 years old. I just lost one of my legs. It really puts things in perspective. So I felt pretty lucky early on that I had only lost my leg and I had my life. That I really felt like one of the lucky ones.
These are letters that I wrote to my wife. These are all letters while I was in the Marine Corps. I had no idea they saved them. So I started reading them. And something happened.
One day, I stepped outside on the deck, and when I went outside, my mind stayed inside. I actually lost my mind.
What used to be called shell shock, battle fatigue. It's PTSD, it's real, it's here, and it's not going away.
Freedom isn't free. You know, veterans pay a big price for it.
Eventually they put me onto a stretcher and they loaded me onto that helicopter and they gave me a salute. The biggest struggle wasn't physical for me, it was mental. It was trying to figure out, what do I do next? I'd lost my purpose in life.
You know, right now we're still kind of rolling on the high from being Paralympian and silver medalist, and so it's trying to settle back into normal life, if you will, and just go back to being me.
I think it's important that we have very smart
all races and creeds and diversity in our military because it is a reflection of us. But at the same time, if we don't have that kind of individual that's willing to put their life on the line, we will not be the free country in the future that we are today.
To search the USA Warrior Stories archive, view full stories, and learn more, visit usawarriorstories.org.